Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome to our stage, Marty. Give me 2 seconds to cue you up here, sir.
And the stories they were telling. He was starting to remember some of the stories. Oh, and they were going through the mountains, and there was a rock slide, and they had to spend 3 days helping the road through.
This is an excerpt of how the Christmas truce unfolded, according to Henry Williamson, a British Army officer who was there. For weeks we had lived in flooded trenches. The Germans were 80 yards away. Our trench was enfiladed. We lost many men, shot by snipers. Night after night, since the tailing off the Battle of Ypres, we had toiled in the parapets, filling sandbag with clayey mud, squelched through muddy lagoons of woodland tracks, carrying rations, duck boards, pumps, and ammunition. We were volunteers, rushed out to help General French's shattered expeditionary force. A few weeks before, we had been schoolboys, bank clerks, undergraduates, medical students. Now our lives were ravaged. Some of us, the young ones who thought of their mothers, were near to despair. Without hope, without horizon. At first, trench life had been interesting, even enjoyable. It was fun cooking our own bacon and making tea in the wood while shrapnel cracked overhead. Good sport stalking the wild geese in the marshes, satisfying to feel the soft hairs of our unshaven chins. The regulars were decent chaps, heroes of Mons. But the rains fell, and the trenches filled almost waist high. After a few days, we could scarcely move our legs, nor did we seem to need food. At night, we dragged ourselves out of the ditches and moved about, uncaring of bullets aimed at random in the dark. All night we worked, carrying parties, pumping fatigues, parapet building. At dawn, we slid in the water again and set ourselves to endure the gray daylight. Even now, so long afterwards, when I hear rain on the tiles overhead, the ghost of that time makes me draw the blankets closer around my neck. On Christmas Eve of 1914, we were in the support line about 200 yards inside the Ploegsteer wood. It was freezing. Our overcoats were as stiff as boards, our boots were too hard to move, but we rejoiced as the mud was hard too. Also, happy thought we would be able to sleep that night. Inside a new blockhouse of oak boughs and sandbags called Piccadilly Hotel. No bed but the cold earth, no blankets even, but sleep. Sleep. Then came a message from brigade headquarters, brought I think by 2nd Lieutenant Bruce Bairnsfather of the Warwicks. Wiring parties were required in no man's land all night. And there would be a moon. We would have to work only 50 yards from the German machine guns in the White House opposite the eastern edge of the wood. 2 hours later, we filed out of the dark trees into the naked, moonlit terror of no man's land, holding our shovels besides our faces in hope of protection against the expected mortar blast. The moon was high and white among the frozen clouds. We were visible. Someone slipped with a clank of a spade or rifle. We flung ourselves on our faces and waited. But the battlefield was as silent as the moon. For an hour, we worked in silence, in a most mysterious soundlessness. What had happened? We began to talk naturally as we drove in stakes and pulled out concertinas of prepared wire. There was no rifle fire, either up or down the line, from way up north beyond Ypres to south, beyond Armentières and the French army. At midnight, we heard laughing as we worked. We heard singing from the German lines, carols, the tunes of which we knew. I noticed a very bright light on a tall pole raised in their lines. Down opposite the East Lancs Trench, in front of the convent. A Christmas tree. With lighted candles. Was set. On their parapet. The unreal moonlight life went on. Happily. Cries of "Come on over, Tommy, we won't fire at you." A dark figure approached me, hesitatingly. A trap. I walked towards it with a bumping heart. "Merry Christmas, English friend." We shook hands, tremulously. Then I saw that the light on the pole was the morning star. The star in the east. It was Christmas morning. All Christmas Day, gray and khaki figures mingled and talked in no man's land. Picks and spades rang in the hard ground. It was strange to stare at the dead we had only glimpsed at swiftly from the trenches. The shallowest graves were dug, filled, and set with crosses, knocked together from lengths of ration box wood, marked with indelible pencil, for king and country, for Vaterland, und Freiheit, fatherland and freedom. Freedom? How was this? We were fighting for freedom, and our cause was just. We were defending Belgium, civilization. These fellows in gray were good fellows. They were, strangely, just men like ourselves. How can we lose the war, English comrade? Our cause is just. We are ringed with enemies. The war was thrust on us. We are defending our parents, our homes, our German soil. The most shaking, staggering thought that both sides thought they were fighting for the same cause. The war was a terrible mistake. People at home did not know this. Then the idea came to the young and callow soldier that if only he could tell them at home what was really happening, and if the German soldiers told their people the truth about us, the war would be over. But he hardly dared to think it. stolen. But we will fire higher. Nevertheless, please keep undercover. At 11 p.m., Berlin midnight, we saw flashes going away into the air. 2 days later, an army order came from GHQ to the effect that men found fraternizing with the enemy would be court-martialed and, if found guilty, would suffer the death penalty. And again in that place, the fairy lights soared over no man's land at night, and bullets cut showers of splinters from trees, and sometimes human flesh and bone. So hope sank into the mud again, but did not die. Despite a withering anew as each poor human unit fell in machine gun and mortar blast and colossal reverberating rending of the shells of those 4 years. The years whose truth seems to be incommunicable. Sometimes, as one listens to what people say, here in the England a generation died for, it seems like almost pre-war again. Can it be that we lack imagination to see the other fellow as ourselves? Henry Williamson continued to fight. He was eventually wounded by gas. And when he was declared unfit to serve in the army, he then volunteered for the Air Force to see if that could get him back to the front. But he didn't make it back to the front, luckily, because the war ended. The war ended. But not before 20 million were wounded and 17 million men were killed. Men. Just normal men. Gone. So, this holiday season, please think of those men and women around the world in the trenches now, risking life and limb for what they believe in. For freedom. And think of the civilians trapped in those hellish places, suffering in the merciless path of war. And finally, as Henry Williamson asked, let us not lack the imagination to think of other men as men. Men like ourselves. Men like and may there be peace.